Time for World Edition here on Pod TV. We'll be discussing a lot of things going on in the world, and hopefully, folks will be joining me, and we'll be having conversations about that this morning. A four-person IDF tank crew, including the battalion chief, was killed by Hezbollah in South Lebanon. So, Israeli military strikes in southern Lebanon in intense fighting as U.S.-Iran talks have been postponed. So that's something that's going on in the Middle East. So we'll see how this all progresses as Lebanon says Israeli strikes killed 18, as of course Israel was saying 4 soldiers were killed by Hezbollah. Andy Burnham defeats Reform UK in Makerfield by election. So Starmer plans to take on rival Burnham in a challenge for UK Labour leadership. So Andy Burnham wins the UK Parliament seat, key step in bid to oust the Prime Minister. I saw all the reform weaknesses on display in Makerfield. Farage should be worried, is what The Guardian was reporting. Starmer's future hangs in the balance after Burnham's Makerfield election win. And too soon to tell, but Ukraine flexed in the strike in Moscow. So Ukraine strikes Moscow refinery in large-scale drone attack. So that is something that folks are talking about as Moscow residents were complaining of black rain after the largest Ukrainian attack hit the oil refinery. And mayor accused of faking her kidnapping in a $2 million embezzlement scheme in Mexico. So that is something that folks are talking about in Latin America. Vietnamese man departed from U.S. to South Sudan is repatriated after months in detention. And U.S.-Iran talks in Switzerland were canceled as J.D. Vance scrapped that trip. Vance no longer traveling to Switzerland for Iran talks as Lebanon clashes are straining the agreement. So U.S.-Iran peace talks in Switzerland have been called off, clouding the prospects for a lasting truce. So definitely we'll see how this all plays out and how the truce in Ukraine goes as well. EU leaders weigh, not truce in Ukraine, but in Iran, I should say. EU leaders weigh tougher measures to combat the China trade imbalance. Chinese export flood tests Europe's stomach for trade war with Beijing. EU delays trade confrontation with China, and EU nations ready to battle China Shock 2.0 with a tough new strategy. And a boy 3 years old is critical after an incident in a crocodile enclosure at a UK zoo. Man forced a boy 3 into crocodile pen at English Zoo is what the police are saying. So he looks like he was attacked by a crocodile at the zoo as the man bailed. And we'll see how this all plays out as well. And Trump said we expect a complete ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel. That's what he was reporting on early yesterday. But now we know that there are problems with that now. We should send you to Moscow. Belgian Prime Minister has a diplomatic mission for Costa. So EU leader, Costa's Kremlin overture, exposure, divisions over contact with Russia. So Russia tells Europe yes to talks, no to ultimatums. And dinner at Versailles, Alpine Air, and an Iran agreement. How Trump made it through another G7. Trump clears apparently a low bar for G7 summit in France. And definitely take away from the G7 Trump's new attitude toward allies, buoyed by their praise for his Iran deal. It looks like he may be getting some praise for that Iranian deal and all along those lines. So that's something that people are talking about as well. So lots going on in the world, as I was saying, and all along those lines. So we'll see what folks have got to say about a number of these stories. Of course, Kimberly is asking us all to join the conversation, and hopefully you got some thoughts as well. So if you're here and you want to join the conversation, don't hesitate to jump in online or however you feel like doing it. Two sides of a political chasm share one fear in Colombia's presidential race. And I think that's a return to some of the kind of repressive things that used to be going on in their country. Colombia's De La Espriella seeks presidency with a nationalist law and order campaign. And definitely some people are asking, will Colombia elect its own Bukele? So Colombia faces a historic choice, writes its last president. Europe's budget battle begins as leaders spar over China challenge. EU leaders set to clash over bloc's next 7-year budget. So EU summit, Merz is calling for cuts to too high budget, and definitely meet the camps fighting over the EU $2 trillion cash pot. So that's definitely something that people are talking about as well. And Macron's diplomatic efforts bring Trump closer to European view. So Trump tours the Palace of Versailles before dinner with Francis Macron, and that was a couple of days ago. Macron's Versailles diplomacy wins mixed results over a decade in power. And NATO defense ministers make good progress ahead of the Ankara summit. So there are definitely summits around the world that are trying to solve some of these world problems. Israel says cutting ties with top EU diplomat over apartheid comments. The joke on SAR, nobody buying stale recycled slogans from Israel's top diplomat. So Israel foreign minister to sever all contacts with this top EU diplomat. And Russia threatens escalations after Ukraine hits Moscow with their largest ever drone attack. So that's something going on in that area. And the Anthropic chief tells G7 leaders to resist the temptation to splinter over AI. CEOs of Anthropic and Google DeepMind call for US led AI coalition in a meeting at G7. Trump and AI CEOs discuss global AI rules, and definitely that is something that was part of the conversation as well. And the Gulf states have moved on, leaving Israel behind. Gulf states are frustrated by failure to tackle Iran's missiles, is what analysts are saying. Do Middle East nations still see the U.S. as a reliable ally? That is something that NPR is talking about as well. And Al Qaeda linked militants claim attack on Niger airport that killed 13. So this is on the African nation. So Niger airport attack, 35 die in attack on the Niamey airport. 11 soldiers, 22 terrorists killed in a deadly airport attack. Gunfire erupts near the Niger's capital airport, which was what was taking place on yesterday. So that was definitely something that folks were talking about as well. And the EU Parliament backs law allowing offshore detention centers. Anger at send them back chants by right wing MEPs after EU migration law vote. EU Parliament approves strictest ever migration law. So that's definitely something that people are talking about as well. And like I said yesterday, the 1,200-year-old Robin Hood oak tree in Sherwood Forest has died, group says, and many are saying that that is heartbreaking for lots of folks. Actually, they said heartbreaking for everyone. And Brazil executes a warrant against a Lula ally in a widening financial scandal. So Brazil police target top Lula aide in the widening Banco Master lender probe. Brazil's police target a close ally of President Lula in a sprawling fraud probe. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Baroness Casey warns that grooming survivors are still being failed. First batch of grooming gang cases returned to police to reinvestigate, and that's something that is going on as well. So the rape gang inquiry report strengthens links with Islam. Trump from hunter to hunter, new book details Trump's push to test the limits of executive power. And war has strengthened the Islamic Republic. Peace could split it. So U.S. Iran peace deal, how Iran won the war, and America's loss to Iran will unravel geopolitics, is what is being reported by Bloomberg. So we'll see how this plays out and if folks agree or disagree. And Ukraine drone makers target Asia as Taiwan tensions spur demand. Terra Drone establishes Estonia-based defense subsidiary to support European expansion. Japan's Terra Drone buys two Ukrainian drone makers in a global push and everything like that. I see I've got Rick joining me, so I'm going to bring him in, see what he's got going on in his world. We'll see other folks join us as well. But yeah, there's a lot going on in the world. Poland arrests a suspect in the killing of a Russian artist critical of Putin, is what Prime Minister Donald Tusk is saying. So the exiled Russian artist known for anti-Putin cartoons was shot dead in Poland about 3 days ago. So I guess if you're going to do that criticism of Putin, you got to be careful and try to find ways to protect your own life. And a 19-year-old suspect in the consulate shooting was arrested at the Toronto airport. So, new arrest in Toronto U.S. consulate shooting as authorities probe foreign ties of the gunman. So, that's a lot going on in the world, including some of these sports things. There's even Kareem Khan suspended in Britain over alleged sexual misconduct. So, the British lawyers' body suspend the ICC prosecutor Khan over a misconduct claim. So that's just some of the stories that I'm finding. But what are some of the things that you're finding that you're interested in, maybe even in the sports world or in the U.S.? Because I didn't really
So
get.
we're what? We're about 5 hours away from America versus Australia in the World
Yes,
Cup.
yes, we are.
and let's see. Apparently, they don't like each other.
And I
Um,
don't think they like each other. There's a lot of people that are having conflicts and lots of disagreements on the World Cup cups. I think I saw some
I've got a
arguments.
quote here. Let's see.
I think I
Um,
saw an argument between Qatar and Canada, even though Canada won that game handily. It was like six to
yeah.
zero. But a couple of arguments over what I think Canada considered cheap shots.
Okay. There's a lot of coverage on MSNBC on everything Trump did to fix the reflecting pool between
Right.
the Washington Monument is wrong. Didn't work.
And what?
Um, he sealed the bottom of the pool. Somebody I'd read an expert saying, you don't want to seal the bottom of a pool like that, that the leaking through the natural granite actually serves to cycle out the gunky water and keep it more clear of. Anyway, he didn't do that. He sealed the bottom. That was a mistake. The paint he uses is already peeling off the bottom. It looks like crap. Does it really matter? Not in the overall scheme of things. I mean, he spent Hegseth wants $80 billion for the war, compared to just 18 million they spent on the pool, which is less than 1/4 of 1%, 1/10 of 1% of what the war cost. But it's just a symbol of, just braggadocious incompetence.
Yeah, braggadocious incompetence. I did see that there's a couple of candidates in Maine. I don't know if anybody cares about Maine, but apparently Hannah Pingree and Bobby Charles will be running to be the governor of Maine. So it looks like Matt
Okay.
Dunlap beat the DCC back candidate in the primary for the top Maine battleground, and then Pingree is going to be facing this Bobby Charles. So we'll see what's going on because they've got ranked choice primaries there and everything. So it
All
looks
right.
like they resolved that ranked choice primary, setting up the governor's race and the key House contest. But of course, Trump is just bragging left and right. I think I heard him say recently that his deal is much better than
It's
Obama's
not.
deal, and
It,
that he is the boss.
it's not a better deal. Negotiations have already broken down. Um, is the Strait of Hormuz open right now? I don't know.
Yeah,
What's
no, if it's open.
let's see what it's saying.
And by the way, while you're looking
Nope,
at it,
it's been declared closed again by Iran.
okay.
So
Well, they just had some conflict again with Hezbollah, so I'm imagining they were going to close it again. So that deal might have only lasted less than a
yeah,
day. But it looks like ICE spent $700 million on 7 warehouses, and if you got a few million laying around, they now want to get rid of it. So they had a proposed immigration and detention center in Salt Lake City, and they're going to offload that. So they're saying that ICE Barbie has already been humiliated in this $700 million U-turn fiasco. So apparently they bought 7 warehouses to turn them into detention centers. Maybe they don't have enough detainees. Maybe they just realize that it's a public relations nightmare. Whatever reasons, they're trying to unload them.
at a loss, I'm sure. J.D. Vance has been quoted as saying that Trump has the highest IQ of any president ever, um, and that's getting quite a bit of scorn on X, because it's not remotely true.
And apparently, because I did see something, I think it was on Instagram, it might have been on Facebook, but apparently, Mom Donnie's wife is getting a lot of flack and also praise because she had a New York designer design her a outfit, but the outfit was basically reused T-shirts of the Knicks and everything like that. So a lot of people thought that she looked very sharp in the outfit, but of course, the MAGA folks did not like it and everything like that. So they were not the biggest fans and everything in that line. And we got Sasha joining us. Sasha, I see that the attacks are coming hard and furious into Moscow. So it looks like Ukraine is taking major initiatives and everything like that. So what is your thoughts on how that is going? Because it looks like they're taking major.
Yeah, I think it's a very smart move to bring war to Moscow because a lot of people in Moscow. I don't have anybody in Moscow that I'm in contact right now, but I have friends who have people there in contact. And whenever they were talking about the war, so they were saying, "Well, we don't care about the war; it's somewhere else. It's not in Moscow, so we don't care. They do care now, big time, because now you saw the pictures. In that case, I think the leading source, at least for me, is Midas Touch Network. And they show real picture, real time, and they're talking about what exactly happens. Unlike all this major media, like whether it's New York Times or Wall Street Journal or Fox News and all this, they're not reliable. See, the problem is, I'm not saying that they're lying. What they are doing, they are manipulating the data, and whatever they decided that they don't want Americans to know, they simply don't put it on front lines or so people don't know about it. How did you find about Moscow burning?
I found out it actually on Google News, but it was from different news sources. I think I found out about it off of Bloomberg and some of the other more liberal medias. So definitely I found it because I tried to research various sources, not just one source.
Yeah, I'm curious what Fox News is talking about Moscow burning. I'm pretty sure that they will not even discuss it, but I saw the real pictures.
Yeah.
The Moscow is burning. They're burning all this anything to do with the oil business. They're all so under control of Ukrainian drones. The Moscow has no defense. Interestingly enough, the Moscow has no defense against drones because their major ammunition is this C-300, C-400, and so on. They can't even detect the drones because they're flying on a very low altitude, and it's very difficult to even detect them. And even if they are detected, now what you're going to do? You're going to shoot these missiles worth $1 million each to shoot one drone. And if you have several hundred drones, what do you do against several hundred drones?
Yeah.
And Ukraine, remember, by the end of the year, they will manufacture 7 million drones. And this is all for you, Moscow. There is only one target, 7 million drones against Moscow. That's it. That's the end of it.
It's getting to Moscow and everything. And to answer your question that you answered me earlier, because I had reported it earlier, but I'll just let you know where the sources came from. Bloomberg's headline was Ukraine biggest strike on Moscow brings fears of fuel shortage. The New York Times said game changer, too soon to tell, but Ukraine flexed in strike in Moscow. And BBC, which of course I know is reporting a lot of good news, says Moscow residents complain of black rain after largest Ukrainian attack hits oil refinery. But to your point, no headline from Fox that I saw there or anything like that, but it was definitely other agencies that might be considered more liberal or liberal to moderate.
So let's do a little math. 7 million divided by 365 days means Ukraine is making 19,000 drones a day.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Remember, this a lot of the drones. Okay, there are some very sophisticated drones worth thousands of dollars, but a lot of drones are worth 30, maybe to even less. So some drones are available for $5,000. I mean, you can manufacture them in your basement. Actually, they're so very simple, very inexpensive, and so on. So I don't know the proportion of 7 million drones, but trust me, whatever it is, as you said, it's enormous amount. It's unbeatable situation. There is no defense against them. So Pentagon, instead of asking for extra trillions of dollars, they should just think about what's a proper way to fight a modern war. If you want to fight, okay, I'm not saying that America has to fight. No. But if you choose to fight, at least do it the right way. Not the same as in 19th and 20th century. Do it a modern, very focused and inexpensive way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We'll come back to some more world news. I know Rick's probably got some thoughts on a number of stories, but I don't know if you saw my WhatsApp chat or anything, Sasha, but I did watch the majority of the game between Canada and Qatar. It wasn't much of a game because y'all had control the whole time and everything like that. So I would just send you a note because I was praising Canada. It was like 6-0. It wasn't a close game at all.
Well, objectively, Canada is much stronger team than Qatar to begin with. Before championship and after championship, it's just a much more quality, much stronger team. Now, look at this demeanor of Qatar team. They had several, I think, at least two red cards.
They did.
They were playing obnoxious on the verge of intentional maiming the players, and one of them had a broken leg and had to hospitalize, unfortunately. See, this is a downside of bringing a lot of these Asian, African teams when they don't really play quality game. But you see, unlike in hockey, okay, in hockey you're not playing a good game, so you're crushed, you're out, bye-bye. You see, in soccer, there is relatively easy to maim other players.
Yeah.
And this is what their teams are doing. So you don't, like in Europe, they had qualifying groups. Only top, you have 6, 7, 8 teams in a group, only top one is making to a world championship. So a lot of quality teams like Italy, for example, okay, so they were second in a group for whatever reasons. Maybe that's it, okay, they're playing some qualifying matches, they lost, I think, they lost, by the way, to Bosnia-Herzegovina. So they're out of world championship. And when US discussed an idea to get Iran out of the World Championship and replace it with Italy, Italian Soccer Federation said, no, we don't need this. We will qualify on our own next time.
Yeah, that makes sense and everything. Hey, Rick, and I've got to get ready to prepare for a meeting that I've got to get to, but I'm still here listening. So y'all may see me go off screen for a second and everything like that. But share with the audience some of the things that you're seeing in the news and all along those lines.
I'm not seeing that much that's super new. Like I said, the Hormuz Strait is closed again. Will that lead to higher oil prices, higher gas prices? We're under $4 a gallon for the first time in nearly 3 months, national average. I think it'll stay under for at least a few weeks. Especially if they get the strait open in the next week or two. Israel is still attacking Lebanon. There was a story from yesterday that Grok AI was used to launch 2,000 U.S. missiles, which just seems stupid, given that we've got decades of people warning against putting AI in charge of weapon systems.
Yeah, that makes
Pete Hegseth wants $80 billion to pay for the war.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you one very short thing, which I have to leave earlier. There is a great stock market manipulation is coming right from the President of the United States. So look at how it works. So there was a meeting of Federal Reserve about interest rates, and they were somewhat hawkish that there is not going to be a hawk. Lower interest rates, but they may, in fact, will go higher. So the market is collapsing when they heard that. So here comes the signing is immediately changed from Friday to Wednesday to say before the market closed that here is a deal, we signed the deal. So nobody cares about the interest rates anymore. There is a deal. And then later on, I think yesterday, they said enormous deal is between Intel, where U.S. government owns a very large stake, and Apple. So Intel is going to make chips from Apple. Who cares about this? The Apple was getting their chips from somewhere else, from Qualcomm maybe or somebody else. So now they're gonna get chips from Intel. So what does it change for average American? Nothing.
So a thing that worries me that Biden his approval was crushed when he pulled us out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And never recovered. It screwed up his whole presidency. I would say that this Iran war thing has many parallels with that. That he got bad military advice, made a bad decision. It's about the same point in his presidency as when Biden did Afghanistan. So,
well, at least Biden didn't have to pay $300 billion.
No, so I mean, so there's you could argue that the Trump war is worse than what Biden did, but what worries me is that that Trump won't pay any political price for this. That it won't change his approval at all. That somehow his base and his ability to bullshit will save him in this.
You know what, Eric, I think the point is that the Democrats, they don't have that megaphone like Fox News, like all other Republican outlets. Democrats just don't have it, because if they do, they don't use it then, or they don't know how to use it. They just cannot manufacture the news after news showing what kind of con man Trump is and his government just as well, the manipulation of the stock market, the illegal trades that he's doing. So we get it from the third parties. Like I'm listening only to Midas Touch Network. That's the only thing that I'm listening. I don't listen to any other American sources. CNN, well, CNN reports some of it doesn't report. So Midas Touch Network, that's the only thing what matters.
Yeah, and Fox News is well financed, where you can say boycott their advertisers. It doesn't matter, because Fox News makes most of its money from your monthly cable bill.
Absolutely, yes.
So Fox News is unstoppable. Fox News had to pay $800 million last year or the year before for lying about the 2020 election. They've got another $1 billion lawsuit that is slowly proceeding. I'm sure they don't like having to pay, but they can afford it.
Yeah. Well, it's a cost of doing business for them, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think Democrats probably are biding their time. They want to get active closer to midterm elections, because whatever they will do now, by the time of the election, will be old news, and it's not going to be too important.
So this will probably be the most expensive. Every new election is the most expensive election in history.
Yeah.
So I'm sure this will be the most expensive midterms in history.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But I can look up how much cash they have on hand.
Okay.
So the Republicans have a record-breaking 125 million, while the Democrats only have 14 million.
Here we go.
So, and plus the Democrats have 18 million in debt. So the Democrats are actually broke. How does this happen? I don't know. Frickin' Republican PACs, political action committees like MAGA Inc. Has $350 million. Democrats, not so much. So
Kimberly just reported that the Germany was just speaking about the terms of the war, and they cut him off when he said it was a payout of 1.7, but then it went off. So apparently there was some censorship going on in the reporting of what was coming out from the G7, because I guess they were talking about the cost of the war, and when they were talking about how much it was going to cost.
On what channel was Kim watching?
Ask her, and hopefully she's listening. She can give us that answer because I don't know what channel.
Because okay, the 1.7 billion is the Obama number. That what happened was while they were negotiating, there have been sanctions on Iran for decades from Western countries. Now, most of the world's banking systems are Western.
Right.
So when Iran sells oil, those funds, before they make it back to Iran, generally go through Western banks, and they can be held. And that's what happened under Obama and previous to Obama, was that 1.7 billion in oil revenue was kept from Iran until Iran completed this deal that took a couple of years to negotiate with Obama for nuclear inspection. The deal gave nuclear inspectors daily access to known nuclear sites in Iran, and then some access to look around for maybe secret. Anyway, it was not a perfect deal, but it was a deal.
It was a deal, and I know that Trump.
And once that deal was signed, Obama said, "Here's the 1.7 billion of your money that we've been holding until we got this deal done."
Ironically, it was Fox, because she says she watches Fox Now for live news, and he was saying the terms was for 1.7. So apparently,
so anyway, for the past 10 years, Trump and Republicans have been attacking Obama for returning the 1.7 billion, saying they gave Iran billions to pay for terrorism. Actually, the money came with there were supposed to be safeguard, like rules on the money that it had to be spent for the welfare of the people of Iran. There's plenty of ways to get around that, but at least they tried to do that. So there was 1.7 under Obama. Under Trump, what we hear is it's going to be 300 billion, which is 175 times what Obama gave Iran.
Right. And apparently she said
really important to further to what I said before about Midas Touch Network. If you want to know the real news, when and how they happening, you have to, that's only one network in the United States that you can work, and you can be assured that what they're broadcasting is true. If you want so-called validation, I heard it on Fox News, that must be true. No, it's not true. It doesn't matter that you or somebody else heard it on the Fox News. Fox News is a Republicans' propaganda machine. It's Trump's network. So why would you spend your time? You have so much time left in your life, so many days, so many hours if you want. Why would you spend that precious time listening to Fox News, my friends?
Yeah, she said Trump put 300 billion, and she's a fan of, and I know Nick isn't always, but she's a fan of PBS. So she says PBS is the real news, but she watches Fox News to see what lies they are telling the people.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing. I'll turn on Fox News until I get pissed off. It usually doesn't take very long because they usually have some knucklehead on, either not talking about what everybody else is talking about, because what everybody else is talking about is something that makes Trump look bad.
Right. So how come that the Moscow is burning? Ukraine is hitting Moscow now every day. So even if they bombed, there's a place called Kapotnya in Moscow. It's the southwest of Moscow, and they have a lot of oil production facilities. They're producing the aviafuel. Right now, even flights. A lot of flights are being canceled. They don't have a fuel for their aircrafts. And even if they fuel aircraft, it's only a minimum to get from point A to point B. Now, if for some reason the flight could be change its way because of even because of this drone attacks or maybe some other considerations. They don't have enough fuel, so they have to drop right from the middle of the sky down to Earth because of lack of fuel that they need. And a lot of cars cannot be refueled, so they're on the highways and waiting. And it's not on Fox News. It's not there. They are buying Trump's propaganda. That's all what they are.
So it's on other news outlets, but it's not super high up on the page. It's I don't know if it's exhaustion with the war, but it should have bigger headlines than it does.
It's exhaustion from war, you say? Well, it's exhaustion from Trump's actions or inactions in that war, which he promised to finish in 3 days or 5 days or whatever it might be, and he is incapable of doing anything. He was supporting his friend, Mr. Putin, who is now suffering just as all Moscow people because of this. They can't even breathe normal air because all these effects.
It's a huge cloud. It's a huge black cloud of burning oil smoke that's visible from the entire city, and that's covering the city with black rain that's staining people's clothes and making it hard to breathe.
Right. So, Mr. Trump, where are you? Go to help your friend, Mr. Putin. Fast, because Moscow will burn for the next several months. Every day, 7 million drones are ready, and they're not going to Rome or Berlin or Paris. No, they're all going to you, to Moscow, all of them.
So why hasn't Ukraine attacked the Kremlin, which is the most recognizable symbol of Moscow and Russia?
Well, they have actually now, since Russians destroyed Kievo-Pecher Lavra, which is a great artifact of early Christianity. But they're not going to do that for these reasons. They are attacking only targets that produce something useful for military, like oil refineries, for example, and others. So they restrain themselves. It's not easy. Trust me, it's not easy, because, of course, you wanted to see Ukrainians bomb the Red Square, Kremlin, and everything else. But they restrain. It's not easy, but yes, they do.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. I have to go. There are a lot of things to do. Good luck to you, and just see you on Monday.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Oh, so we should talk about it's Juneteenth. You must have mentioned this before I came in. Juneteenth is...
I did not, but yeah, Juneteenth is a major holiday. We've got actually activities all over Durham for Juneteenth and everything like that. There's actually going to be an event called Opens Stew on the 20th. There's a Juneteenth celebration, I believe, in downtown Durham, and of course several in Raleigh and everything like that. But yes, this is the celebration of the emancipation of the slaves and everything like that. So it's a major holiday throughout the country and everything like that.
Well, not exactly throughout the country.
Number of events that are taking place, as a matter of fact.
I mean, so we're talking about two different things. So Lincoln frees the slaves as of January 1st, 1863. But Texas doesn't get the news for another 2.5 years, right? Till June 19th, 1865. You know, Texas managed to kind of bullshit its citizens for another 2 years and keep the news from them. Is that kind of the deal? So Juneteenth marks the day that the slaves in Texas got the news and were freed. So
that's the people are using.
You're breaking up a little bit.
party. Or was that breaking up?
All right. No, you're breaking up. So my knowledge on this isn't very deep, but slavery was eradicated bit by bit. So Lincoln does the Emancipation Proclamation, January 1863. Congress doesn't propose the 13th Amendment for the national abolition of slavery until two years later, 1865. By June, this is off of Wikipedia, almost all of the enslaved population had been freed by the Union Army or by state laws. Then the national, so I got it wrong. The Texas slaves weren't freed until 1866, not 1865.
Yeah, there was a lot of delay. A lot of the slave masters didn't want to let people know and everything like that. I actually looked up something unusual yesterday, and it was interesting reading about it and all along those lines because, we're in the middle of a hot summer here in North Carolina, and I know that it was hot even during the time of slavery, and I was just curious. So I looked it up, how many slaves actually died of heat stroke, and it was quite a few that suffered heat stroke because, the plantation owners had this notion that slaves were able to cope with hot weather stronger than other people and everything like that. So there was even some historians, including some black historians, that said that this was the proof of one race being superior or another and everything like that. But yeah, they tried to use that as a excuse for putting people out into the fields because they said that they couldn't handle the heat and everything like that. But it was just interesting because I was just curious. There was so many centuries ago that I was curious as to see whether there had been any writings, and there had been writings that heat stroke is not anything new. It was going on even during slavery, and even though they did not keep records or accurate records because they tried to blame it on other things like fatigue, laziness, and a number of other things that they were trying to use to keep the slave narrative going.
If your labor in the modern world for a modern company, two-thirds of the operating costs for a company are wages that you pay your workers. So if you don't have to pay your workers, that makes it much easier to make a profit, which means that you can be a freaking idiot and be in charge of like a cotton plantation. Getting your labor for free fails to weed out the idiots who would mismanage their resources, not even, human considerations aside, that these jackasses would kill their labor force because a lot of them were schmucks and cruel schmucks. I mean, you look at Trump, who had a lot of, he's had a lot of advantages and really never had to learn how to run a tight ship.
Right.
He started off with close to, hundreds of millions of bucks worth of real estate from his parents.
Right.
And then he kind of mismanaged that and went through, boom and bust cycles. Then he learned the tricks of making money by going bankrupt and using the losses to not pay taxes. He learned a bit, like he never had to learn to run a tight, successful, profitable business. Yeah. And we see that in the way that he does business now. So it was similar for, these big slavery operations, because they were getting, not entirely for free. You still needed to feed your slaves. But that was what? Probably 1/10, 1/15 of what you would have paid them if you had to pay them reasonable wages.
Yeah, exactly. You would have to, and at that time slaves were considered livestock, so they were probably not fed the best food or anything along those lines, and definitely were probably getting what would amount to slop now and everything like that. But
sure.
Yeah, definitely was not the best conditions. and all along those lines. But yeah, that was definitely something. But Juneteenth is a celebration of the emancipation, and like I said, there's things going on. Today is the official Juneteenth day, June 19th, but there are celebrations going on all weekend and probably into Monday, but definitely all weekend and everything like that, whether that's here in Durham or whether that's in other locations as well, not just in North Carolina, but throughout the state, I mean, throughout the country. By the way, just really quickly, I saw that there was a famous case. I think it was one of those cases that we've been talking about in the past, but apparently the defense for Luigi Mangione is halting their psychiatric evidence plan. So they are withdrawing their emotional disturbance defense. So
Yeah.
they had originally tried to do this whole notion, the accused CEO killer, that it was a issue around his mental health. And we do know that that is oftentimes a defense strategy and everything like that. But it looks like they are backing off of that strategy.
Okay, to go back to Juneteenth, this is the 160th anniversary of the first Juneteenth. And it's not that long ago, and we still haven't healed from that frickin' war. I'm old enough that when I was a little kid, there were still the wives of slaves and Confederate soldiers that were still alive, which is crazy. But like some 80-year-old guy who'd been a slave or a Confederate soldier would marry some 20-year-old in some weird deal, and then that lady would live for 80 years. Those some of these women were still alive when I was alive, which is nuts. But it's.
I mean, did you ever see the book? I mean, not the book, the movie, because I was dealing with somebody that had lived through slavery, The Diary of Miss Jane Pittman. It's been a long time since I saw it, but it was a classic. And at that time that the movie came out, I think it was in the 70s, they were reflecting on somebody because they were in the comparison between the civil rights struggle and what she had gone through in slavery. And of course, we had that Roots, which explored a lot of, as well, the classic Alex Haley book. And I'm sure that you're familiar with that book as well.
Mm-hmm.
And movie.
So there was a famous book in 1992, a bestseller called The End of History.
Mm-hmm.
And the author of that book said, we've solved everything, basically. Everything's cool now. Wars are pretty much going to be done. You know, this was right at as Bill Clinton came into office. And you know, the world seemed, you know, we were moving into the internet era. Everybody was going to, you know, and things seemed good. And 30 years later, you know, a bunch of stuff has happened in the 21st century, a lot of it not good. And we no longer think it's the end of history. And these awful events in history, the Civil War is only it's a little more than 160 years in our past. World War II, 80 years ago. And we see echoes of that stuff now in our politics.
I mean, one of the things that a lot of people are concerned about, and it's even the conversation around Juneteenth, is that a lot of the gains that were made in the 60s and the 70s are also the gains that are being taken away and everything, whether it's voting rights, whether it's things that have to do with apartments, whether it's things that have to do with housing rights and a number of other things along those lines. And that really wasn't that long ago, because I mean, I was born in 62, so there was still, at the time I was born, I think the hospitals were still segregated, because desegregation really would have happened late.
All right, so the Voting Rights Act is 61 years old. And what John Roberts and the rest of the conservatives on the Supreme Court say is, well, everything's cool now. They're having their end of history moment where they're saying, well, you know, we did it. We fixed everything so we could get rid of the Voting Rights Act, which is, as we know, kind of complete bullshit, because every time they get rid of some provision of the Voting Rights Act, red states, particularly the southern states, get in there and do something that disenfranchises black voters.
Yep. Well, we got Steve Rao joining us, and he got disenfranchised when he was voting, and I mean, running and everything like that. But it is Juneteenth, so I don't know if you're going to any Juneteenth celebrations or any of your reflections on Juneteenth and just on civil rights in general and what's going on
Yeah,
with the parties and
I'm gonna
everything like
try. I'm not going to as many events in the next year or two, just as I transition to more of my career and then media. But I'm going to try to hit the RTP before another meeting I've got, and then I've got a big work meeting this afternoon. So, but yeah, I mean, I think we've come a long way. We still have a lot of work to do. I think that we've got to continue to, fight for equality, fight for justice, address injustice and racism, um, wherever it is, and it's just terrible to see the kind of discrimination out there. But it is what it is, and I just feel like, but I think it's a great day. It's a great day to celebrate. Big day in American history, and we'll have to see how it goes.
see
But
how it
anyway,
goes and everything like that. By the way, I am an uncle, but definitely I consider myself a mentor and to some degree, I guess, a father figure to some. But I know the two of you are fathers, so Kim did say Happy Father's Day and all along those lines. So definitely, I hope that y'all are going to have some good Father's Day events. Actually, ironically, my dad's birthday is right at Father's Day, so his birthday will be on tomorrow, and Father's Day will be on Sunday. So it's back to back days of celebration for my own pops and everything like that. So, any thoughts or reflections around Father's Day also?
no, it's a great Father's Day, a great day to celebrate. And sorry for anyone that's lost a father out there. And but it's a great day, and looking forward to having a good Sunday, seeing my dad. And I got to go to Denver, and then I'm going to go to just traveling a lot more this summer than I thought. But it should be good. So
Cool.
yeah, hoping to get Andy Bashir, the governor. He's coming in to meet us in August. I'm working on an event, but I'm hoping we can bring him on our network.
Now, you think he's got a good shot in the 2028 race if he decides to run, right?
I think so. I think I still think Kamala Harris has a great chance of winning the nomination if she runs. I think his biggest threat's going to be the left progressives. That's going to be the biggest problem. It's hard to win a Democratic primary as a man anymore. I think Newsom is also dangerous. I think because of his persona, his ability to raise money. But I think that the best guy to win the White House is Bashir, no question.
Okay. Would somebody put Harris in the VP spot again? Because I mean, we've had two big electoral defeats with the Democratic candidate being a woman in the presidential spot, but obviously we've won with a woman in the VP spot. Are we ready to? America disappoints us that way.
Yeah, I don't know whether she'd do VP again. Maybe that's a good way for her to serve the country. She could put some experience, something to think about.
I mean, what should have happened in order to win the 2016 election that was won by Trump is it should have been Biden in the presidential slot and Hillary Clinton in the VP slot. That way, any of her supposed made-up scandals.
Great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, if I had a time machine, I could really fix some stuff.
After hearing Obama yesterday, it made me want him back in the White House. So that was a great speech and appropriate. That was before Juneteenth, first African American or Black president, and I think he did a great job. And it should be an exciting time. So I want to wish everyone a good week. I got to head off to a call, but I want to wish everyone a good Juneteenth. Get out there to an event, do some history, read some books, use your day off to learn about how we can make ourselves better as a country. And we often forget we're one nation. We've got many different beliefs, but we've got to figure out a way to come together. It's
true. I mean, we've as much as we annoy each other, we are one of the most powerful countries in the world, if not the most powerful country in the world, because we are one nation.
Exactly.
And I read a lot of science fiction where our differences become too much, and by 2050 we're broken up. And if we break up, then we lose, 80% of our power.
Exactly. I will have a great day, guys. I'll be back in about I'll be back on Monday. And thank you for your patience with my schedule. It's been crazy with work. So
Well, thanks for coming by.
yeah, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Mark. See everyone. Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth. Good weekend. I'm going to check out too. I've run out of stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Well, good to see you, Rick.
You too. Hey. Bye, everybody. Good weekend. Good Father's Day.
Since you're heading out, I'll go ahead and wrap everything up. It was a good conversation, and I look forward to seeing y'all on Monday.
All right. Bye.